Nobody saw this coming. The man who built Hollywood's biggest love stories is now linked to one of today's most admired actresses. But here's the real question no one is asking. How do the women who once shared his life feel about it? Tom Cruise, Ana de Armas, and three ex-wives watching from the past. Is there jealousy, silence, or something far more unexpected? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear changes everything. Nobody expected this. When news broke that Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas were spending time together, the internet didn't just react, it exploded. Social media feeds were flooded with speculation, fan pages went into overdrive, and gossip sites rushed to publish every possible angle. For many, it felt sudden, almost unbelievable. People began asking the same question over and over again. Was this simply a professional connection, or was something far more personal quietly unfolding behind the scenes? After all, Tom Cruise is not just another famous actor. He is a global icon. With decades of blockbuster films, record-breaking box office success, and an unmatched reputation for discipline and privacy, he has become one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment history. Yet despite his fame, Tom has always kept his personal life tightly guarded. He rarely speaks about relationships, avoids public drama, and carefully separates his private world from the spotlight. That's what made this sudden attention so surprising. Ana de Armas, on the other hand, represents a new generation of Hollywood. She is admired not only for her beauty, but for her talent, grace, and quiet confidence. From emotionally powerful performances to major action films, she has built a reputation as an actress who lets her work speak for itself. She doesn't chase controversy. She doesn't seek constant headlines. Instead, she has earned respect through consistency, professionalism, and authenticity. When these two worlds appeared across, it felt unexpected, almost unreal. To many fans, it was a pairing no one had predicted. A legendary superstar known for privacy, and a modern actress known for elegance and independence. Different generations, different journeys. Yet somehow, their names began appearing together in conversations, headlines, and online discussions across the globe. But what made this story truly fascinating wasn't just the possibility of a new connection. It was a past. More specifically, it was how Tom Cruise's ex-wives were said to be reacting. Three women who once stood beside him in different chapters of his life. Three relationships that shaped not only his personal journey, but also how the world has come to view him. These women were not just part of the story. They were part of Hollywood history. Each marriage represented a different era, a different emotional landscape, and a different version of the man behind the movies. So naturally, people began asking, how do they feel now? How does it feel to watch someone you once shared a life with possibly step into a new chapter, especially with someone so different, so admired, and so fresh in industry? Is there jealousy, regret, indifference, or something more complex and deeply human? In a world where celebrity relationships often turn into public battles, dramatic headlines, and emotional statements, this situation feels different. There are no explosive interviews, no accusations, no social media wars. Instead, there is silence, distance, and perhaps something far more powerful, emotional maturity. This is not a story about scandal. This is not about choosing sides. And it is certainly not about tearing anyone down. This is a story about growth, about time, and about how lives move forward in ways no one can predict. So let's explore this moment with clarity, respect, and truth, separating emotion from rumor, and focusing on what really matters. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories in Hollywood aren't about fame or headlines. They're about how people evolve when the cameras stop rolling. To understand the reactions, we first need to understand the past. Tom Cruise's personal life has unfolded in distinct chapters, and each of his marriages represents a different stage in his journey. Not only as a man, but as a global icon growing under the pressure of fame. Tom Cruise has been married 3 times, and none of these relationships were ordinary. Each one shaped public perception of him in a unique way and left behind a story that fans still remember today. His first marriage was to Mimi Rogers, lasting from 1987 to 1990. At that time, Tom was still rising in Hollywood. He had talent, ambition, and star potential, but he had not yet become the unstoppable legend we know today. This was a phase where his identity was still forming, professionally and personally. Mimi later spoke about their relationship with grace and maturity, often highlighting that people evolve as they grow. Their separation was not surrounded by scandal, but rather by the quiet reality that two individuals can move in different directions. For many, this relationship reflected a youthful chapter, where dreams are big, but life is still taking shape. Then came Nicole Kidman, a union that defined an entire era of Hollywood. Their marriage lasted from 1990 to 2001, making it the longest and most public relationship of Tom Cruise's life. Together, they were more than just a celebrity couple. They were a symbol of power, glamour, and artistic partnership. They starred in major films. Sources close to Mimi Rogers suggest that she views Tom's life as his own journey, separate from hers. She has long stepped away from Hollywood's constant spotlight, choosing a quieter, more private existence. For Mimi, the news does not appear to reopen old chapters. Instead, it serves as a simple reminder of truth most people eventually come to accept. Relationships change, paths divide, and life moves forward. There is no bitterness in her perspective, only understanding. It reflects a kind of emotional clarity that comes with years of self-reflection, recognizing that what once mattered deeply no longer defines who you are today. Nicole Kidman, now happily married with a thriving career and a full family life, has remained completely silent on the rumors. And sometimes, silence speaks louder than any statement ever could. Those close to her describe her as emotionally grounded and focused on the present, her children, her creative work, and the life she has carefully built. For Nicole, the past is not something that demands reaction or explanation. If anything, her response appears to be one of calm detachment. She has created a world that is no longer connected to old chapters, and she seems at peace with where her journey has taken her. Her silence isn't avoidance, it's closure. Then there is Katie Holmes, whose story remains closely watched by both fans and the media. Over the years, she has intentionally stepped away from Hollywood's chaos, choosing privacy over publicity. She has built a life centered on stability, independence, and motherhood. While she has never commented publicly on Tom Cruise's personal choices, people close to her suggest that she values emotional safety and balance above all else. For Katie, this moment is not something to address in headlines or interviews. It is simply part of life's natural progression. People move on, stories evolve, and new chapters begin. There is no visible resentment, no public reaction, and no attempt to shape a narrative. Only quiet dignity. What stands out most is what we don't see. We don't see jealousy. We don't see bitterness. We don't see emotional battles played out in public. Instead, we see distance. We see boundaries. We see women who have grown beyond the need to react to every development connected to their past. In short, none of them appear angry, threatened, or resentful. Their responses reflect something deeply human, yet rarely highlighted in celebrity culture: growth. They are no longer defined by who they were married to. They are defined by who they have become. This is what makes the story quietly powerful. Not conflict, not controversy, but emotional evolution. It reminds us that even in a world driven by headlines and speculation, people can choose peace over noise, dignity over drama, and progress over the past. And perhaps that is the most unexpected reaction of all. So, why does this relationship feel different? Ana de Armas is not just another actress linked to a famous name. She represents a completely different energy in Hollywood, modern, grounded, and respected for her talent rather than controversy. Her rise has not been built on scandals or constant headlines, but on carefully chosen roles and consistently powerful performances. From emotionally deep characters to high-profile action films, she has earned admiration through her work, not through attention-seeking behavior. What makes Ana stand out even more is the way she carries herself. There's a quiet confidence in her presence. She doesn't try to dominate the spotlight, yet she commands it naturally. She speaks softly, chooses her projects carefully, and allows her craft to define her image. In an industry where noise often replaces substance, her approach feels refreshing, almost rare. That is why, when her name became connected to Tom Cruise, the reaction was different. Unlike many of Tom's past relationships that were followed by intense media storms, dramatic public appearances, and endless speculation, this connection appears more private, controlled, and intentional. There are no grand red carpet moments designed to capture attention, no carefully staged photo opportunities, no emotional statements or public displays meant to fuel headlines. Instead, what people see are brief, calm sightings, two professionals spending time together quietly, away from the chaos of celebrity culture. For many fans, this signals something important: a possible shift in Tom Cruise's personal life. For decades, his relationships existed under extraordinary public pressure. Fame, expectation, and constant attention shaped how the world viewed his private life. But now, this moment feels different. There is less spectacle and more subtlety, less noise and more balance. It suggests that perhaps Tom is choosing peace over publicity, depth over display. And that may be exactly why there appears to be no visible resistance from his past. Sometimes when a person evolves, even those who once shared their life can recognize that growth. This connection doesn't seem to reopen wounds or stir public reactions. Instead, it exists quietly, almost respectfully. It is not presented as a replacement of the past, but as a new chapter shaped by maturity. This also challenges the typical Hollywood narrative. We are used to stories where a new woman becomes the center of conflict, where ex-partners are portrayed as jealous, hurt, or publicly reactive. But that is not what we see here. Instead of rivalry, there is distance. Instead of confrontation, there are boundaries. And instead of emotional chaos, there is calm. What we are witnessing is not a dramatic love story meant for headlines. It is something far more human, a moment shaped by mutual respect, by emotional maturity, by the understanding that lives move forward without needing to erase what came before. This situation reminds us that real life is not always like gossip columns. Relationships do not always end in bitterness. New beginnings do not always create conflict. Sometimes, people simply grow into different versions of themselves, and those who once walked beside them can acknowledge that change without anger or regret. That is why this connection feels different. It isn't loud. It isn't performative. It isn't driven by spectacle. It feels intentional, grounded, and quietly meaningful. And in a world where celebrity relationships are often defined by drama, this subtlety stands out more than any headline ever could. It suggests that beyond fame and public perception, there are still personal choices being made for peace, balance, and authenticity. Perhaps this is not just a new relationship. Perhaps it is a reflection of a man choosing a different way forward. And that is what truly changes a narrative. So what's the real story here? It's not about jealousy. It's not about drama. And it's certainly not about choosing sides. This story is about evolution. Tom Cruise's life has unfolded in chapters. Each marriage, each relationship, each transition shaping who he is today. Like any human journey, his path has not been linear or simple. It has been marked by growth, change, and moments that redefine both his public image and his private world. Every chapter carried meaning. Every ending led to a new beginning. What makes this moment different is the way the past and present exist together without conflict. His ex-wives are not characters in a rivalry or symbols of unfinished stories. They are individuals who built their own lives, their own identities, and their own peace. Each has moved forward in her own way, creating worlds that no longer depend on who they once loved. That is not emotional distance. It is emotional strength. Ana de Armas may represent a new beginning, but that doesn't erase the past. Instead, it highlights something far more powerful, that people can move forward without tearing each other down. The past, and that speaks louder than any rumor ever could. For viewers, there's a powerful lesson in this moment. Relationships end, but respect doesn't have to. Love changes, but dignity can remain. And growth does require conflict. These are not just celebrity ideals. They are human truths. We often live in a culture that expects drama when something ends, as if closure must always be loud. But real maturity often arrives quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It simply exists in the way people choose peace over reaction, understanding over resentment, and forward movement over emotional attachment to what once was. As fans, we can admire the story not for the rumors, but for what it teaches us about maturity, boundaries, and emotional evolution. It reminds us that relationships do not define us forever. They shape us, but they do not own us. What defines us is how we move forward once a chapter closes. Whether Tom and Anna's connection becomes something lasting or simply a moment in time, one thing is already clear. The reactions, or rather the lack of negative ones, tell a story of people who have chosen peace over noise. A story of individuals who no longer need to respond to the past in order to live fully in the present. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of this entire narrative. Not the headlines, not the speculation, but the quiet understanding that life continues, not through conflict, but through growth. In today's world, where attention is often driven by controversy, this kind of story feels almost unexpected. It doesn't shout. It doesn't divide. It simply reflects something deeply human, that people change, lives evolve, and new chapters can begin without erasing what came before. And in the end, that might be the most meaningful headline of all.